On this Community Wednesday, let's break down the Krig 6. I've mentioned the Krig 6 before in some of my other videos. The last one I believe was when I talked about the Fara. I basically said that the Fara was better than the Krig 6 in every sense. However, things have gotten changed up, like the barrel nerfs, so let's break down the Krig 6 and see if it still is a much worse choice or an equal choice to the Fara. So let's start with the build. In it, we have the suppressor, the 15-inch CMV mil-spec barrel, the axial arms 3x scope, the field agent grip, and STANAG 60-round magazines. The reason we're using this combination of suppressor and mil-spec barrel is because we don't really need the vertical recoil control, and our bullet velocity, while it could get better, it is serviceable like this. So let's get to the stats, starting with mobility. Its ADS speed is 320 milliseconds, which is in between long-range Modern Warfare weapons and long-range Cold War weapons. Its reload speeds are 3 seconds from empty and 2.3 if you're adding, so definitely add ammo, never fully empty your magazine. Its mag cap is 60, which is expected for most assault rifles. And its movement and sprint speeds are actually amazing. You don't need to swap to a secondary weapon, unless of course it's a Cold War SMG built for speed. However, this is basically the same movement and sprint speeds as the Fara. Its ADS strafe speed is 1.66 meters per second, which is average for a long-range assault rifle, and its sprint out and tag sprint out times are 250 and 370 milliseconds, which is pretty average. Its stability is 1.5 T, which is good for a long-range assault rifle, and its bullet velocity is 1025.6 meters per second. So it's not the highest, but it's definitely not the lowest, and it's definitely more than the AMAX used to give. But its rate of fire is 10.85 rounds per second or 651 rounds per minute. This is 150 rounds per minute less than the Fara, and this is extremely important when we get to the damage section. So when we add up the mobility points, we get a total of 37. Its recoil is pretty easy to control. It's pretty much vertical, then it moves slightly to the right, and then it goes vertical again. However, when it's doing these changes of direction, the recoil magnitude actually decreases, so it's extremely easy to compensate for. This is a rare instance where the recoil pattern on paper is a lot worse than it is in actual use. So it gets a recoil score of 48. Now damage is where it gets quite interesting. So it has a damage drop off at 44 meters. Its headshot TTK isn't really that great. Its upper and lower torso TTKs are pretty average, and its limb TTK is also not great. Although its upper and lower torso TTKs are better than basically every other long-range assault rifle from Modern Warfare. In its second damage range, so after 44 meters, its head TTK isn't that great, and its upper and lower torso TTKs are again pretty average. And its limb TTKs aren't that great either. However, when compared to Modern Warfare ARs, its head is average, its upper and lower torso are better, and its limbs are average again. The thing with the Krig is that you need 2 headshots mixed in with upper and lower torso shots in order to reduce your TTK, but if you get a limb shot, this pretty much gets nullified. So it is very unlikely that you're going to get a TTK much faster than what you see here. So it gets a damage score of 45, so it gets a final score of 130. This is still pretty good for a long-range assault rifle. It still is better than most long-range assault rifles for Modern Warfare. However, when we start comparing it to the Fara, things start to fall apart. While yes, it does have better mobility for the most part, and its recoil is on average better, and for some reason, the Fara has a higher rate of fire and deals more damage than the Krig in the first damage range. And in the second damage range, even though it deals less damage, its higher rate of fire gives it a much better TTK. The biggest difference is that the Krig gets its first damage range all the way up to 44 meters, while the Fara has to switch to the second damage range after 31. So basically, only between 31 and 44 meters, the Krig will come out on top. However, these are long-range weapons, and we're going to be using them at much longer ranges, typically around 80 meters. So the Fara will always be on top. However, this doesn't mean that the Krig is a bad choice. There's still a lot of people out there running M13s and Grau's. And although you may be losing to Faras, you'll be beating pretty much all the Modern Warfare assault rifles. And because it's a Cold War gun, you'll actually be able to run around the map with it. You don't have to switch to your secondary, so if you want to go straight for your ghost loadout, this may actually work. However, it's not just the rate of fire that makes the Krig worse than the Fara. Its limb damage also is an important factor. The Fara deals even damage from its upper torso to the limbs, only having a different headshot multiplier. However, the Krig if you hit a single limb shot with your upper and lower torsos, you're going to increase your TTK. And unless you get a headshot to make up for it, there's nothing really you can do about it. So sometimes you won't know if you're getting 9 or 10 shots to kill. And making up for limb shots is a lot harder to do at longer ranges. So for a longer range assault rifle, the Krig 6 is a pretty decent weapon. It's still usable at closer ranges, unlike some long range assault rifles from Modern Warfare, but its lower rate of fire and limb damage does kind of make it harder to use at longer ranges. For some reason, they really decided to make the Fara the perfect long range assault rifle. And even after the nerf, that pretty much made it easier if you're just holding the trigger. So if you're using the Krig, just try to hit all your shots and don't miss, because if you miss, you will lose. And this is another reason why I decided to use the suppressor. If we decrease its ADS time to 320 milliseconds, that means that we may have an advantage when coming up against the Fara. You pretty much have to get every advantage you can and use it over the Fara if you want to beat it in a head-to-head battle. So move a lot, switch locations, force them to ADS in and out, and make sure that you're hitting all your shots. So I'm not saying that it's a bad choice at all, and if the Fara didn't exist in the state that it does right now, I would say that the Krig 6 is a very viable weapon and that you should use it. However, because the Fara exists, just use the Fara. However, if you decide to go against the meta, the Krig 6 is a perfectly fine choice. Just know exactly what you're going up against. So, what do you think of the Krig 6? Have you used it yet? And if so, do you feel like the stats match the actual feel of the gun? And if you have any build or weapon you want me to cover, or any questions, topics, or ideas, let me know in the comments and you may see them on the next Community Wednesday. But that's the video. If you enjoyed it or if it's helped you in any way, let me know by leaving a like. If you got any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section down below. And if you want to make sure that you never miss another video, be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.